Good morning and welcome to the ODPP Café. My name is Anita Onuko. I want to start by apologizing for starting late. We've had technical difficulties with the internet, but now we are live. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being patient and waiting for the show. Our session is live and we are at, on Facebook, we are at ODPP, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. We are also on YouTube live at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. You can follow us on Twitter at ODPP_KE. And of course, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Facebook. You can invite your friends to also follow us. Remember, the aim of the show is to inform you, to educate you about the law. And of course, you get to know what to do, whether you're in contact or in conflict with the law. And you also get to advise someone in case they also need to know something. I have learned something over time, and I hope you have. I think this is the 61st episode, so we are still going strong, and of course, learning as we go. So engage and follow us on our social media platforms, and of course, you can ask a question, you can make a comment, and we'll see how to respond to you. So as always, we start with a quick sneak into the courts and what has been happening at the ODPP. And as you know, yesterday was quite a busy day in the courts, very, very busy. If you followed our social media platforms, we kept updating you on what was going on. And a lot has been happening in the anti-corruption space, thankfully, because remember, during elections, there was a bit of a slowdown, or rather the DPP decided to slow down on anti-corruption cases, but you're back with a bang, as you saw yesterday. So maybe we can just go through a quick sneak. But first, one of the things that happened yesterday or the other day was that the DPP again dived into the integrity and the Chapter 6 issue, integrity issue. And he was urging lawmakers to vet MPs who provide oversight. These are the parliamentary committees. He says he called on lawmakers to create a mechanism to actualize the proposal of actually vetting the MPs who would be providing this oversight. So the vetting would enable lawmakers to participate in oversight of state agencies and give more credibility to the reports presented to them from the investigative agencies, and of course, make prosecution cases easy and mostly successful. So like I said, yesterday was quite busy, and you saw the case about Ferdinand Waititu. There was an erroneous media report that he was off the hook, but we corrected that. And the thing is, he's not off the hook. His case is still ongoing. It was about, I think, a 588 million graft case. What happened yesterday was that his tender committee had appealed, and so it looks like the court had them. But of course, this will go to appeal. So the only case that was terminated was against the co-accused. His co-accused, not his case. So the 5 co-accused, the tender evaluation committee members. But we'll see what happens to that. So for clarity, that case is still ongoing. And of course, the other case that was in the courts was about the former National Assembly Majority Leader, Amos Kimunya, and a former land director of land adjudication, Lilian Jenga, on a case of a 60 million graft case related to land. So his case is still ongoing. He had appealed, but the court reversed that. So that is still on. And the one that made now crazy headlines was about Waluke, the Sirisia MP. Of course, he went to court and he was sentenced to 57 years in jail. Him and his co-accused, Ms. Wakungu. They will serve those years for fraud. So quite a big case. We'll see how that goes. But in addition to that, there were others that maybe you didn't get to see. And I'll just take you through 3 of them. There's one about murder involving police, which 17 witnesses are bound to testify. On a case involving police officers, the ODPP prosecution led by prosecutors Paris Maina, Della Wilby is set to present a total of 17 witnesses in a murder case touching on 5 police officers who allegedly murdered a suspect, Caleb Esipino Otieno, who was in lawful police custody at Changamwe Police Station in Mombasa County in 2018. The 5 police officers are Khalif Abdullahi Sagat, James Mulikoti, Joseph Odhiambo Sirawa, Edward Kongo, Ochonga, and Nelson Nkanai. So this is from a case that happened in 2018. And I guess now they are ready to proceed with the case. The murder suspect was booked at the police station on September 18th, 2018. And according to reports, he was temporarily removed from the cells at around 10:45 the same night to be taken to hospital, where he was later pronounced dead while undergoing treatment. So the pretrial is set for 13th October 2022. The other one is about an Egerton university student who killed his lover. He has been sentenced to a 10-year jail term. Edmond Ruto pleaded guilty to slaughtering his girlfriend, Cynthia Chelangat, in 2018 as well, inside her rental room in a hostel in Jokerio area in Joro sub-county, Nakuru County. On the fateful day, Ruto, then a fourth-year student, sneaked into Chelangat's room, demanding an explanation as to where she had spent the previous night after communicating her intentions to end their relationship. So this was quite a sad case, and he will be going to jail for 10 years. So Ruto reached for a kitchen knife, stabbing Chelangat twice on the neck and on the stomach, and later on her thigh, before attempting to commit suicide. In his judgment, Justice Joel Ngugi noted that the suspect acted out of anger and was remorseful of his actions. He handed him a 10-year jail term after claiming that he had learned his mistakes and requested his family to apologize on his behalf to the family of the deceased. And then finally, directors of an Eldoret company are charged with 17 million fraud. The two directors of a farm input and implements company, who are charged with fraudulently obtaining more than 17 million from their employer, have been detained for 2 weeks after an Eldoret court objected to their release on bond. Sanjeev Patel, Rohit Kumar, and Pashottam Patel appeared before Senior Resident Magistrate Christine Menya on Tuesday, 4th of October. They committed the offense between 15th and 23rd April of 2019 and 2020 in Eldoret. So they were charged with the fraud of 17 million, and they just recently appeared, and of course they were denied bond. You know, we've talked about bail and bond and how it comes with its conditions. So maybe they didn't meet the threshold for that. So they denied the charges. They applied for release on bond through their lawyer, Sam Maina Madhai. State Counsel Jeremy Muredi implored the court not to release the two on bond until a probation pre-bail report was provided. The magistrate directed the two to be remanded at the Eldoret prison for 2 weeks, pending a ruling on the bond request. So the matter will be mentioned on 17th of October. So those are some of the cases that we had, quite a lot. Of course, what really made news for us was the anti-corruption cases that were in court and that were pending for quite a while. And you can interact with the messages we put out yesterday on our social media to see what's going on. And feel free to ask. And of course, circulate factual information. You can pick that from our social platforms as well. So, back to our show. Again, apologies for starting late, but better late than never. I'm so excited with my guest today. I feel like to say I am seated in the presence of greatness. So when you say the present is women, so I'm sitting with the present. Thank you. So karibu sana Sandra. I want her to introduce herself because I don't think I'll do justice by introducing her. So please tell us.
In international studies at the University of Nairobi. I immediately joined the civil society space, and for a span of about 6, 7, 8 years, I was engaged with institutions at the local and international level that focused on human rights, good governance, democracy and transitional justice, and health and human rights. And after a while, I felt I needed a change. I wanted to do something else, give value to others in a different space. And so I got engaged in politics and political activities. And during this period, I made a number of media engagements, and in terms of engaging in commentatorship, if I could use that word, and political strategies at the time. And I had the privilege of being nominated by the then political party, Jubilee, for a seat in parliament, which did not work out. But then moving forward, an opportunity arose to serve within the presidency, within the Presidential Strategic Communication Unit. And so I joined the public service then as a presidential speechwriter, which I did for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, 2018 to 2021. After which I moved to the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage, where until most recently, I was the chief of staff in the office of the cabinet secretary. So that's me in a nutshell, career-wise. At a personal level, I'm a mother. I'm a firstborn in a family of 4, and in my spare time, I enjoy spending time with my cats, and I love to write as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Karibu sana to the show.
Asante.
I love your story. It is quite a journey, you know.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So she's an intellectual. She's written a book, and that's why you're here today, guys. We want to unpack her book, and it fits right into the objective of the show. Like, so our show, like I said earlier, is about educating people, informing them, and telling them stuff about the law from an unlegal point, because I am not a lawyer, so but I host lawyers like you to just give us perspective so that you understand the world around us from a legal perspective. And your book fits right into what we do, because it aims to educate, and of course a certain segment of people. So you are addressing the youth.
Yes.
And maybe my first question is, what is this age group, and why the teen? Why a teenager?
Yes. I'd say this is a book. It's called The Teen's Guide to the Constitution of Kenya. And it's a simplified version of the Constitution, which helps the Kenyan youth understand the Constitution of 2010. For those of you who have it, then perhaps you can read the synopsis at the back. The guide simplifies the legal list with which the Constitution is written, and the activities at the end of each chapter allow the reader to test their comprehension of the read. So, as indicated, and as the name speaks for itself, it's for young people. And the reason as to why I wrote the book for young people, for me, is threefold. One is because growing up, I realized that there are certain aspects of my history that I wasn't taught adequately. You know, you open, and by then we used to do GHC. I don't know if you did the same.
Oh yeah, I did.
But you used to do GHC. So GHC will have, we have the fight for independence, and they talk to us about our heroes, and then they talk to us about our presidents, and then after that, you know, it's very little to do with the reality of what my country was. And so my first real experience, if I could use that word, of the underbelly of my country was in 2007, because I believe during that period I lived a very sheltered life, and there were certain discussions that I wasn't included in, or perhaps were thought that I couldn't understand or I couldn't engage. And so my first interaction with my country, the reality of it, was during 2007, 2008 post-election violence. And so during that 1 month, I was in shock, and I mean, what's happening? Why is it happening? And you know, why wasn't I told about it? And then it's during that time that I also started out in my career. I was just finishing law school and now getting into my workspace, you know. So you're exposed to all these engagements around bringing peace and transitional justice. And as time went by, I participated also in the reform processes, you know, trying to develop structures and systems that will ensure that our country does not go back to where it was in the 2007, 2008 period. But then what I realized during this time was that even then, the discussions and materials that were being developed, they were being developed for adults, and they were being developed for constitutional and legal experts. So there was
not even for me.
Not even, you know. And even the civic education activities, it's adults and you know, particular groups that were being engaged. So this, in my perception, continued to disenfranchise a group that years later was still expected to vote. Years later was still expected to engage. So that was the second reason. The third reason is an understanding and an appreciation that perhaps this exclusion is not intentional. You know, as parents and guardians, we want to protect our children. And sometimes we imagine that there are things that they shouldn't know, they don't understand, and perhaps there's this generational shame or generational embarrassment as to what your engagements have done over time. So you shield children and you shield teenagers from the things that they should know. Because without letting them know the truth, then you have a 14-year-old who's in Form 2 today, then in 5 years, this young man or this young lady will be expected to vote, and they'll be expected to stand for office and make decisions. So, but what kind of preparation have you made? You know, what kind of foundation have you laid for this young person to enable him to be the best adult, to be the best voter, to be the best leader, to be the best representative in parliament for 5 years from now? And so it's these three motivations that got me writing a simplified version of the Constitution, again bearing in mind the role that the Constitution plays for us as a country, and instilling values amongst us, and especially for young people, for them, they can be better adults in the future and better citizens in the future.
Do you think as a country we are better off with this Constitution now?
I believe so. I believe so, because if you look at the journey of even getting a new constitution itself, right from the fight for multi-party democracy, women's rights, land and environment rights. I mean, we've gone through a period and a journey that I think has stretched us in ways that are quite positive, and in ways that are beneficial to the generations to come. And I often say that there are very many and each generation has contributed in one way or another for that time, for that season in time. You have the independence generation, they fought for independence. They gave us the freedoms that we enjoy today. Otherwise, for this morning, you and I perhaps will be serving in some serving in some plantation.
I know, right?
You know, some master's house making tea, you know. So that was a good contribution that they did. Then you have the post-independence generation. For them now, they were focused on nationhood, you know, bringing everyone together, ensuring that we are forming a country, talking about our values, what defines us as Kenyans, what defines us as Africans. Then you have the next generation now that now focuses on the development of these nations, free countries and free nations that have been established. So then now it's about development, it's about infrastructure, it's about entrenching rights, human rights and economic and social and cultural rights. So then now we have this generation, and sometimes I ask myself, for you and I and my generation, what is that one thing that we have stood up for, that we are known for?
You know, you made me think, and I'm trying to really look for it, because I'm thinking, oh dear, so there's a generation that did the independence, the post, and all that. There's the pre-constitution 2010. Then there's us. So what have we done?
So what is it that, as a generation, we can say that this is what we will be known for? And then what is it that the next generation will be known for? What is the contribution? What is that one thing that galvanizes them, brings them together in a manner that brings actual change and impacts generations after them? So
what's your vision for them? Because I don't think I'll get our answer, but what's your vision? Because in writing this book, then there must be a vision. What do you want them to contribute to this country or to the Constitution?
My vision for this book, and my vision for the next generation or generations is that perhaps then they'll have the answers to some of these issues that continue to affect us. You know, fine, we are free, fine, we are able to walk on the streets, we have internet, we have.
But how did we get there?
But how did we get there? You know, and beyond all that, you still there are certain issues that still impact on us. They are cyclic. They are systemic, and they are and they are institutionalized. And so things like tribalism, it hasn't been so much, you know. It hasn't been so much with our generation. I think it began to wane off a bit. So is this something that will continue? Because we still see it, it's still there. Those are conversations we are still having with each other on social media. So it's not something that has been conclusively addressed. So while it cannot be eradicated, tribalism in itself, is there an opportunity for the next generations to view it differently, to package it differently, so that you're a young person, but you're proud to be who you are without victimizing and stigmatizing and disenfranchising the other community. Then there are things, endemic things for us like corruption, which are still conversations. Issues of integrity. Is this an issue for us? to begin with? Will it be an issue for the next generations?
Yeah.
And there's this very popular report. I can't remember from where, PwC or something, but it came out a while ago, where a research was done amongst young people, and their views on corruption then was that it is very, very okay. I mean, it's a means to an end. It's a means to an end. Yeah. The problem comes in if and when you're arrested. So this was
you don't have to be found.
You don't have to be found. You can practice it. It's something okay. You don't have to be found. The only problem is when you find
Usipatikane.
So is that can we say that is a value system for that generation moving forward? And what is the impact that will have in the country?
Yeah.
And then also issues of human rights, issues of women's rights.
Yes.
So I believe that each generation has to decide for itself what's important for it, what's important,
what's your contribution,
what their contribution is going to be.
Yeah.
And so my part is to provide that space, is to provide them with the skills and the tools they need to self-actualize as individuals, as a society, and as a collective.
Interesting. So one of the key focuses for the ODPP has been the fight against corruption, and of course Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And just before the last election, we really, really hammered it. We got to talk to people about it, telling them it is on them. I mean, you fight corruption from the ballot, but the results are different, of course. But you can't help it because the law also says what it says. You know, there's that thing of you have to be convicted, 6 months in imprisonment, or you have to exhaust all avenues of appeal. Yeah. But then now you talk about this generation. I remember the story about a girl in our estate. She's a prefect in school. So first they go through elections in a public school. They go through elections, and in these elections, she was telling now a story of how she asked her mom for money, so she went and bought lollipops and gave her classmates. That's how she won the election. But now going forward, she even tells them now, so I was listening to this story later, that asikweke kwano is make a list, make her 5 bob. So by the end of the day, she has enough 5 bobs. So then maybe my question to you is this. In this book, when you talk about Chapter 6, how do you bring it out to them? Integrity, corruption, how do you want them to understand it?
Well, then I'll look at, for those with the book, it's at page 56.
I left my copy.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So I'll read it out.
Yeah.
And it's contextualizing it for the group. Yeah. So Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity, it starts out, you are holding or have held a position of responsibility at home or in school. What qualities set you apart as a leader? What do you expect from the people in authority in your school or community? And what skills should they possess as leaders? So it's Q&A where you're asking
in retrospect, ask yourself,
and in retrospect, you're asking yourself, and you're asking this young person, as the leader within your space. You're a teenager, but you're a prefect. You're a teenager. You're a head girl. You're a teenager. You're a firstborn at home. You are holding a leadership position at one point or the other. What kind of leader are you, and what kind of leader, and how are you leading the people in your sphere of influence? And even if you're not a leader, you are experiencing other leaders and different kinds of leadership. So what is your view of that kind of leadership? And what skills and what knowledge do they have? And how is this impacting on you? Because remember, again, from our previous conversation, it is not about dictating to them what integrity should be. Because integrity, as we have seen, for this post-independence and constitutional 2010 constitution dispensation space, it is what it is for us. So even for them, we need to allow them the opportunity and the space to define it for themselves. And that is why it comes out in a question and answer form for you to think and reflect on what integrity means for you and what integrity means for your classmates, what integrity means for your
as you pray for that girl.
As you pray. As you pray.
So do you think, like our generation, I don't know whether to be judgmental, but integrity has been very ambiguous, very fluid. Like we think we get it until you're given a chance to bring out the aspirations of Chapter 6, and we sort of fail. We have kind of failed, if you have to be honest with ourselves. So do you think this other generation will actually be better at it in bringing out the aspirations of the Constitution when Chapter 6 was written?
I believe it depends on, because by the time a young person is making decision, it depends a lot on the environment they are operating in and the kind of information they have. So it's starting right from when they are young, having these conversations with them and giving them the knowledge they need, the skills to identify the tenets of integrity within their spaces, and then giving them the space, allowing them the opportunity,
making it practical
for them, and then giving them the space to define that for themselves. Maybe moving forward, integrity will not be quite an important issue for them, or it might be, so we do not know.
Maybe they will apply it.
Maybe they will apply
it. Yes.
And perhaps it will get to a point where it's so bad, to the extent when now it's a necessity for them to talk and implement and legalize issues.
We hope they actually take it serious. There's another chapter that we talk about a lot here on the show, the Bill of Rights. Chapter 4. And at least from your book now, I got to learn it's the longest chapter in the Constitution. So this generation is about haki yangu, my rights. You see very small children really clear about what their rights are. And they are taught in school. So you utasikia a grade 1 child, my right to education, my right to, they know and they memorize and they cram and they sing them along. But then how do you maybe explain to them that their rights are not absolute? Because then, mtu akiendea a law enforcement officer na mali yangu, my right, and maybe they're on the wrong, then you see they get themselves into trouble. So then how do you bring it out in your book that, yes, you have rights, and it's all in the Constitution, but it's not absolute?
Yes, I think that's very key, and that's very important, because it's not only children or teenagers for that matter that you'll find that might lack the understanding of how the laws and the chapter and the
I struggled with that part for being absolute. I think one of the guests, one of the people prosecutors, was explaining to me, yes, you have this, Anita, but it is not absolute. But then how do I tell my teenage daughter or my 11-year-old daughter that it's not absolute?
It's there's normally a very common, not so common, but people use it, where they say, my rights begin where yours end. So what I tried to do was, after explaining the Bill of Rights, letting them know about their civil and political rights, their economic and social and cultural rights, and giving them examples of young people who stood for human rights across the world. Then towards the end, at page 48, I say there are instances where your rights and freedoms can be denied. This is referred to as the limitation of rights, and this is within the Constitution. Your rights can be limited under reasonable and justified situations. For instance, your right to expression cannot be used to incite others to violence or to engage or support disorderly acts. You can also be stopped from exercising your right to demonstration in places such as hospitals and kindergartens, where the lives and health of others could be at risk.
That's
good. So that explains it. You have your rights, all these rights, but then
it comes with responsibility.
It comes with responsibilities, and that responsibility or that restriction is called the limitation of rights in the Constitution. And so that is why this is a guide to the Constitution, and young people then, or anyone else who will now be using the book.
Clearly. We are here.
Or anyone else who's not a teenager will be using the book later. Then even the book encourages you to refer to the Constitution so that it gives you the basics, but then it requires you to refer to the Constitution and also just engage with others, both older and younger, people in decision-making positions, for you to better understand and internalize what the Constitution is about.
Usicheke, I work with the Constitution. Because of this show, I've had to read a lot about the law. So I work with that small book, but now I know I'll be having that small book. And this one, I'll be like a bunyendoku for simplification of this chapter. But it's quite an important book, and I hope they get to read it and internalize it, because it's important. Now, something else, again, that is really coming out in the world, it's about climate change. And you have a chapter on land and environment. So then, how do you break it down to them? Because they seem to live in a generation of tutakuwa tu sawa. They really don't want to invest and get engaged in the environment. So how do you make it clear to them that it is within the constitution that you must?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, at chapter 5 on land and environment, one, giving them a background which perhaps you and I could have benefited from at the time. And it starts, land ownership has been the cause of major conflicts in Kenya. During the colonial period, white settlers grabbed land and other properties from the African community. Unfortunately, the governments that came in after independence failed to remedy this unjust and discriminative land allocation process. Over the years, land grabbing and other corrupt dealings on land administration have led to people being displaced from their homes and led to cycles of violence at the local and national levels. So that gives the history, and then there's a case study about land, on why land is important to us, and what we need to do, and the institutions that have been put in place to ensure for land administration. Now, part of that is, the good part of the book is also a Q&A, a Q&A section.
I like the way you have to ask yourself.
Yes, and you have to ask yourself. So one of the questions is, what initiatives are being undertaken to conserve the environment in your community? Are your parents planting trees?
Are you involved?
Are you involved? You know, there are so many initiatives that are taking place at school, everywhere else. What are they? You know, and what role are they playing? And that, of course, brings us to the next question. What role are you playing in protecting and promoting a clean and safe environment? And you see, as you're interacting with a young person, and giving them these many case studies, it's important also to have conversations about how to promote, I'm forgetting the word, environmental sanity. Could I use that word? Yes. In terms of even how you manage waste, because it's very easy to have young people witness adults throwing things all over,
and they just repeat the
same. They throw it and you walk away, and you're in the presence of your child, you're in the presence of a young person, a teenager, and it doesn't seem to bother you. But then now you'll be the same person who's complaining about a dirty environment, you'll be the same person
clogged drainages.
Clogged drainages, then how does that help? So it is those scenarios and case studies that require for young people to interrogate, require for young people to internalize as they also play their role in environmental conservation.
All right. So I like the book. I'm almost calling it a teacher's guide to to teaching about the Constitution. I was telling you earlier about how my daughter came and said that they're now learning the Constitution in school. It's part of CBC. And she was so excited because she said we're just at the preamble. So I'm wondering, are there plans to have this book part of the curricula? Because as parents of the CBC curriculum, we are looking, there's a task force that has been formed. And I think the expectation is, because CBC is set to prepare the children to a globalized, to compete in a globalized world. So part of this is knowing about the laws of your country so that you're not exploited. So this could really make a good addition to the, maybe you should present it to the task force.
I should, yes.
So do you have plans?
That's that's an idea. That's an idea. And yes, I've been asked about that once or twice or thrice. So I think it's something that I'll look into and pursue and
pursue that.
How far we can get with it.
Okay. All right. So the other question maybe I have is about the reading culture. I like that your book has illustrations.
Yes.
But then how do you get these kids to actually open and read?
And that is why we made it very colorful and easy to read, as opposed to what the Constitution is, very black and white and full of legalese. So that was one of the aims, so that you have young people attracted to it, from the cover to the insides to the feel to the touch, you know, and you just don't develop a reading culture. It's something that has to be cultivated over time. And that requires partnership with parents, with teachers, with caregivers, with the libraries and other institutions that work with young people, to ensure that the book reaches as many young people as possible, and that we are engaging them because it's different when you just buy the book and give
and
it to
keep
the
it.
child.
Yeah, I'ma just put it there. They won't even touch it.
And they won't even touch it.
Yeah.
But unless it is something that focuses on TikTok and IG, then it's not exactly a priority.
Yeah.
But then with increased interaction with young people, with increased engagements on the issues that affect them, then it's very easy for them to gain interest in the book. And so that is one of my goals, is it's not only to focus on young people as much as the book is theirs, but also to promote intergenerational conversations on the book, its contents, and its purpose,
and of course the
Constitution. And of course the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, quite interesting.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering about, just to take you back a bit, about the Constitution. Do you think that by having interacted with what the Constitution says about our country, our aspirations, then we are going to have a generation of patriotic youth? Because I think the last election recorded some voter apathy. And maybe it is because of, what is it, the 18-year-olds, the new crop, who didn't bother to vote. So do you have it in your book to tell them why it is important for them to participate in this process?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the theme from the first chapter to the last chapter, from the first page to the last page. And perhaps the patriotism aspect is captured at chapter 3 on citizenship. And with the purpose that it's not enough just to tell someone, and especially a young person, to be patriotic.
First of all, what is it?
And
why should I be?
And why should I be?
Yes.
And of course, not the questions they're going to say. What do I gain from being...
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me from being patriotic? Because I will be patriotic, but I can't pay my bills. I will be patriotic, but I don't have school fees. I will be patriotic, but I'm hungry. I'm sleeping hungry at home, or my parents do not have a job, so I'm really suffering. So what's the benefit and motivation of being patriotic? And agreeably, that is why now we saw the low voter turnout and even voter apathy.
Yes. Total lack of interest.
Total lack of interest. So I think it's both ways. One is from my perspective, there wasn't enough investment in political education right from the start. You know, that the gap that I mentioned,
civic education.
That I mentioned at the start. Because then the education you're going to be given is about how to vote, you know, or tick here. When you know, when
that thing for IBC.
Yeah, that thing
Eka
for
X,
IBC.
I'm a weka tick.
You know, weka X or weka, you know, and then you have all these papers, you're told the colors, you're told but you see, there is a lot of background work, if I could use that word, that needs to go into preparing this young person to vote. Preparing this young person to participate in the process, preparing this young person to be a leader, to be a citizen of the future.
And also not to participate in violence.
And also not to participate in violence. And so that is where there is that gap. And there isn't, my perspective, is that we haven't been very intentional and very strategic about it. So that you hear a young person say that I'm not, why should I be interested in politics? Politics, in fact, is something for the poor. And the much I'm going to do is to engage in social media. And I remember, if I could have this, I hope she won't kill me, but my daughter says the same thing. Because I have a teenage daughter as well. She's turning 14 this month. Wow. And so a couple of years ago, she started having those conversations of, I'm not interested in politics. And I asked her, how can you not be interested?
And she's Sandra's daughter.
I know. How can you not be interested in politics? What do you mean you're not interested in politics? Everything about life 90% about your day is focused on politics. The kind of decisions that a governor, an MC, a president is going to make affects you, including my job. Am I able to get a job? Am I able to pay your bills? What kind of schools am I able to take you to? Are we able to afford milk? What kind of milk is it? Where is it coming from? So I made it very intentional that occasionally I'm going to have those conversations with her. Like, she goes to school, she comes back, I ask her, how's your day? What happened? And then how can you then
make it better?
relate and contextualize? And the book also provides that at page 133, and I've called it my current affairs worksheet. So that this one has what you're going to do is to stay informed about what's happening around you through newspapers, social media, radio and television programs, because now this is going to be an activity. Write your thoughts on the current affairs worksheet as regularly as possible. So you have the date, time, the name of my source of information, the summary of current affairs. Why is this important to me? Why is this event that happened today important to me? Say the teacher caned me. Why is that important to me? What are my thoughts and opinions on the issues, and which areas of the Constitution does it relate to? Say, in that instance, it's corporal punishment. My rights provide, and now with the laws that exist, that there shouldn't be any corporal punishment because of A, B, C, D. So the more you engage with it, contextualize, and then engage with it on a day-to-day basis, the more it becomes easy, and the more you see how everything is connected and interrelated. So that by the time you are growing with a mindset where politics and issues, constitution and laws and civic education and civic duty are not alien.
They're part of you,
They're part of you moving forward.
You've reminded me about my daughter. She's 11. During the elections, I asked her, so what do you think is happening? She's like, oh, you guys are going to vote, then you fight, then we stay home. You know. And I'm like, what? So ethnicity, ethnic hatred, our history, is it all in this book?
Yes.
You have it all in the book.
Part of it. I included the most recent one. And when I released the book, I said I should have released it way back in June. But I couldn't, because we had the BBI process, which I felt was very important to include. Because then again, like I said, it's also a generational and a time thing. Because your daughter and my daughter have been in a space where what they can relate to, the conversations they can relate with regarding the Constitution now are about the BBI. So that a young person is going to ask you, what is the BBI about? So that needed to be included. So that is part of it. Then you have the history as well. We have the things that are making them what word can I use? The things that are making them relevant for their time. You have young people like Toto.
Things they'll relate to.
Things that they can relate to. You have young people like Toto, who's been included here. You have...
I'm afraid to ask who's Toto.
Are you serious?
Is it the MCA? No. Is she an MCA? Women rep?
Women rep.
Oh, okay.
At page 63, Lynette Chepkorir, popularly known as Toto, was the youngest aspirant for women representative seat in Bomet County. In Kenya's 2022 political party nominations, she won the seat and became the youngest woman representative-elect at 24. So she's part of the young people who have made a mark. So this one is going to go down in history. 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, we look at this and say... And relate. There was someone who actually did this. So
and let me tell you, you know, in the current school administration, they actually have MP, women rep. They have presidents. They do elections. So maybe it is actually very important for them to read this and try and relate what they're doing
and understand
to a national perspective.
And I like that you mentioned that, because in the same chapter on representation, the question you are asking is for you to, do you know who your MP is? Do you know who your MCA is? Do you know who your ward representative is?
I hope you're not asking me.
Where is your county? How many hospitals are in your county? So that you're in tune and aligned, if I could use those words, with what's happening around
your country.
Your country and your county.
So do you have plans to translate this into Swahili?
Yes.
Not Oswayo, but Swahili.
I hope so. And recently, I thought it would also be good to translate it to Braille.
Oh, interesting.
It would be also good to translate it into Braille.
It will.
Because it needs to reach as many young people as possible. And even the young people living with disability have their rights as well. And need to be present and active and participating in nation building. So I have plans for that as well. So now, the office like the ODPP, they're independent offices. I don't know that you have this in your book. Yes, I do.
That talks about who they are.
Yes.
And we have been on a journey, or rather on a mission, to educate people about the mandate of the ODPP and what the 2010 Constitution brought, the separation of powers. There was the investigators are no longer prosecutors and all that. So I don't know that you have it, because we feel like, I think the ODPP really wants people to understand their mandate and that it is for their benefit, that the ODPP is independent, that investigators do their job, ODPP prosecute, then of course how the justice system works. Yeah. So I don't know whether you have this in your book.
Yeah, I have the guide of it. Yeah. But then now Anita will then have to go
and break it down.
And break it down and give them all the nitty-gritties like you started earlier. But the foundation is here at chapter 15 on commissions and independent offices. Yeah. And what I've done is to explain what the commissions, these offices are. Yeah. So commissions and independent offices are established to protect your sovereignty.
Yes.
They do this by ensuring that state organs, such as the executive and legislature, observe the values and principles of the Constitution when carrying out their duties and responsibilities. Yeah. To ensure that they remain independent and work in the interest of the people, the Constitution requires that only qualified individuals and persons of integrity can be appointed to these commissions. Those appointed as commissioners must adhere to Chapter 6 of the Constitution and can be removed from office for violating the Constitution. Yeah. So then we have that list of commissions and commissions, and then we have the list of independent offices, including the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And there is an activity where they're required to match columns, you know. Okay. You have one column with the name and another column with the function, because that's not provided.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, that's not provided in the introduction. Yeah. So you have two columns, one for the activity, stating the and naming the commission, and then the functions. So the young person is expected now to research, to refer to the Constitution, so that when we say the Teacher Service Commission, what is the function of the Teacher Service Commission? The ODPP now, what is the function?
What is the function? I think it's important because we've really tried to hammer this home to our generation, that it is important that these institutions operate independently.
Exactly.
But it's been quite an uphill task, because of course our generation is that special. Yeah. So the hope is that now when they read this, they get to understand the importance of these institutions and why they are separate for their own benefit.
Do you engage them beyond?
We do. And there's a lot of community dialogue going on. Of course, we engage the youth. Some of them are at the committee, Center for the Youth, YCTC. What is it called? It's no longer called Approved School. There's a reformed name for it, juvenile centers, yes, for kids who have been in contact or in conflict with the law. And of course, now they are sort of educated and taken through some of these things. Yeah. We do that again through this cafe. A lot of social media education. We go out, we've been to Kayole, we've been to Mombasa, talking to people about the importance of this office and some of the policies, like the decision to charge. Yeah. That is very important. Maybe we should contribute that to this.
Yeah, that would be nice. Don't tire. Don't tire.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. I think I need to close this. And you need to help way to get your book, so that, they can get it for themselves and for their children. Yes. At least I know I'm getting for mine.
Yes. Yeah. The book is currently available at the Nuria bookstore in town.
And they deliver?
Yes, they do deliveries as well. Yeah. And you can also reach out to me personally, if you wish, through my social media handles. It's Sandra Ochola. It's the same name. Twitter, Instagram. Same name, same
Your
face.
Twitter is Ochola Sandra, no?
Ochola Sandra, yes. Twitter is at Ochola Sandra. Yes. Facebook is Sandra Ochola. Instagram is Sandra Ochola. Sandra Ochola. Yes. Yeah. So you can get it from the Nuria bookstore in town. Yeah. Or you can reach out to me and I'll get you an autographed copy.
All right.
Yes.
And don't forget to autograph for me as well.
Yes, I will. I must.
All right. So, guys, we've come to the end of the show. It was about the teens and the Constitution, and I hope you got something. I got something. It's quite important for us to understand our history, where we come from, and, of course, what we aspired as a people, because that's what the Constitution is all about, right? And, of course, how it also inspires the next generation to do what? To be more involved in nation building.
Yes.
And of course, governance, because it is important they understand how they are governed, who governs them, and their expectations of those who take office. And of course, as a matter of importance, they must understand the independent offices like the ODPP that has sponsored this show. And of course, how the ODPP and the criminal justice system as a whole works. So get yourself a copy, she has said. Either reach out to her, slide qua inbox, or you can reach out to Nuria Bookstore. The book is $5.50?
Yes, it is $5.50.
An autographed copy, you can get it from her if you ask her directly. And of course, you can buy for your school, right?
Exactly.
Tufundishane.
Yeah.
So
for your teens, the teens clubs, groups, local libraries, let us get it out to as many young people as possible.
Yes, it's quite simple to read. Even for me, the non-legal people, of course, you can definitely go back to because it's just a guide. You go back to the Constitution to learn exactly what is being said. So, asante sana, Sandra.
Thank you so much.
We are wiser.
Yes.
We have learned something today, of course, because of your presence.
Yes.
And we look forward to more interaction.
Thank you.
So let's take the gospel out. Let's take it out.
Exactly.
And of course, talk to the teens.
Exactly.
So I want to wish you a Good Friday, a restful weekend. I hear Monday is a holiday.
Oh, is it already? I hope.
Anyway, so I wish you a restful weekend. Let's meet again next week. And of course, as we discuss other issues from our side. Thank you so much and God bless.